Kia ora anō tātou, nau mai e te tini, e te rau, ko Mike Woodbury toko ingoa, he hoa rangapū āhu ki Chapman Tripp, ki te whanganui ātara nei, e mihi ko atu ana ki a koutou katoa. Welcome everyone to what I know will be a highly informational and engaging presentation from Mark Williamson, Benefits Manager for the New Zealand Defence Force, on how tailored savings facilities, comprehensive insurances, financial advice, mortgage broker services and financial capability programs at Defence are not only reshaping financial resilience for Defence Force staff and their families, but are also delivering significant organisational and goodwill dividends for Defence in its employer capacity. Mark will speak to us for about 25 to 30 minutes. Following his presentation, I'll welcome to the stage Prue, Director of Shift Compliance Limited, and Director and Licensed Independent Trustee Michelle Forster, and I'll be seeking their perspectives on the opportunities, the benefits and the challenges of other large employers hugging this cactus and taking some similarly transformational initiatives for their employees and their families. Our aim today is educative and also to help create a call to action for employers and those who advise them, because New Zealand employees and their families are under significant and growing financial strain, with worrisome levels of financial capability and resilience. But there are time and cost-efficient ways and means available to larger employers just to have a little bit more support go a very long way, not only in providing assistance as a social good, but to promote and to leverage better goodwill and engagement, and to assist them in attracting and retaining good quality staff. So I want to bring it back to that dividend for employers. Please do submit any questions as we go. I've got the laptop with me, but we're probably small enough to go old school if you prefer, and just raise your hand and we'll try to do justice to those questions later on. But Mark, welcome again, and to your colleague Tim Cornell, and now over to you.
I'm not as fluent as Mike in Te Reo, so my apologies in advance for butchering the Maori language. I've been coached by one of my colleagues, so bear with me, please. Ana hoa, ana iwi, e te whānau, kua hui hui, manai, tupua. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. And translated, that means friends, people and family that have come together at this time. Greetings once, greetings twice, greetings 3 times. And it's great to see some familiar faces. I'd also like to introduce Mr. Ian Russon, who's the chairman of our governance board, who's sitting at the middle table there, and we have Alistair Macbeth, who's been our legal advisor for some 25 to 30 years, going back over different iterations, Alistair. So it's good to see you and other familiar faces here as well. So it's an honour and privilege to be invited to speak to your conference. Regrettably, Tim and myself are only able to attend today, but we wish you all the best for your conference deliberations over the 3 days. And certainly sitting in on the sessions this morning, it does look like it's a great agenda. And I'm sorry we missed Minister Willis's speech. We were en route from the airport at that stage. The conference organisers have requested that I present to you about our efforts over the last 10 years to reshape financial wellbeing and resilience for Defence community members. And the main vehicle for our efforts has been the New Zealand Force Financial Hub, that you can see up here in display sign, through which NZF has worked collaboratively and effectively with a range of partners to deliver benefits to the Defence community. We've been on an exciting journey over the last 10 years in our endeavours to promote the financial wellbeing of Defence community members, and I'm very proud to share our experiences with you. At the outset, I would like to pay tribute to our partners, including Mercer for the New Zealand Defence Force Savings Schemes, and I think Philip is here somewhere in the audience. Become Wealth, our financial advice mortgage broker service. Aon, the insurance broker for our staff insurance program, AIA, the insurance provider, and Tower, who provide our domestic insurance program. We have Southern Cross, who provide our medical insurance program, Perpetual Guardian, our free will program, and the Retirement Commission. I think I saw Natalie here. Again, we worked very closely with Natalie and her team on the Retirement Commission over the last few years in rolling out financial capability programs. And it's great to see Dennis here. Dennis worked for us and with us for about 6 or 7 years, doing a great job in providing programs, particularly for our young recruits. So good to see Dennis here as well. And then lastly, we've got a newcomer, the Police Credit Union, and all of these parties have been successful and essential to our success. And you'll see we've left on the table some handouts. While all of this is available virtually, we've also brought handouts for people to take away as well. So first of all, some scene setting about the New Zealand Defence Force. NZF is one of New Zealand's largest employers with a workforce of 13,907 people as of last week. And that's made up of 8,907 regular force personnel, 1,689 territorial, they're our part-time soldiers, sailors, Air Force, and then 3,311 civilian personnel or employees. And Tim and I are both civilian employees with all the rights and protection of other employees in New Zealand. Members of the armed forces, however, have a unique legal status. They are not employees. They swear an oath to the Crown, they cannot belong to a union, they cannot strike or withhold their labour, unlike other employees. They're not covered by key pieces of legislation like the Employment Relations Act or the Holidays Act. Although where possible, policies are aligned with legislation to ensure that personnel are treated fairly. They may be required to deploy or to post at short notice, which can be disruptive to both them and to their families. Their role and their status is unique. Even sworn New Zealand police do not fall into the same category as military personnel. Reflecting this, we apply the principles of a covenant. In simple terms, this means recognition of the potential or real sacrifices that members of the armed forces and their families make. Military personnel put their lives on the line for the Crown, and in return, the Crown will look after them. In practical terms, this translates into policies, benefits, and other support mechanisms that go beyond what other employers provide. This includes extending benefits to partners and to other family members, and to continue to look after people after they've ceased service. In that regard, there are some 50,000 living veterans, in other words, people who have served in war zones and combat operations overseas. That's a veteran with a capital V. And families who also have access to the Force Financial Hub benefits as well as to the services provided through Veterans Affairs New Zealand and other government agencies. And I'll just digress from the speech to tell you about an event that occurred last night. I was actually in my lounge walking up and down practicing this speech, rehearsing the speech, and I got a phone call from Kelly Blythe, who's the chair and president of an organisation called the Ramfurly Trust. A wonderful old place in Mount Albert. They have a beautiful stately home that provides care for living veterans, usually veterans on their own. And it was a sad situation. They had a 69-year-old veteran who was on his last legs literally last night, was due to pass away. And both he and his family were anxious to have a will made before the chap passed away. We reached out, Tim and myself, put through a number of phone calls. Finally, at about 8:30, we were able to get hold of someone, Perpetual Guardian, our partner organisation. I'm not sure whether anyone from PG is in the audience today, but Perpetual Guardian is our partner organisation in the provision of our will service. They said to me it was going to be difficult to get someone to go out to the Ramfurly Trust last night itself, to the hospital. But what they were able to do is to put through a conference call to the family and to the individual concerned so they could actually video record what his wishes were. They would then have that typed up as a will and take that out to the hospital first thing this morning for him to sign before he passed away. Now, clearly, if he passed away, there wouldn't be a valid will, but the intention was that before he passed away, there would be a valid will. And that's a good indication of how, again, we work very effectively with our partner organisations to reach out and provide protection for the veterans community as well as for serving defence personnel. To an outside observer, our approach may appear to be quite paternalistic, but we make no apologies for that. The annual budget for the current fiscal year is $4.94 billion, but that includes funding for the capital purchases, for the Ministry of Defence and the Veterans Affairs, which has a separate minister and a separate budget, but still reports through the Chief of Defence Force. Like most other government agencies, we're currently facing significant financial pressures, and of course that's been one of the themes that's been covered off in the various presentations this morning. The prime roles of the New Zealand Defence Force are disaster recovery, both in New Zealand and overseas, state reconstruction and peacekeeping. The NZF is a combat-capable force trained and equipped to advance our nation's interests overseas and to keep New Zealand safe and secure. NZF has camps and bases throughout New Zealand and at any one time has a range of personnel deployed or posted overseas in a variety of locations. While New Zealand is a small country and NZF a relatively small organisation, we are a good international citizen and we regularly punch beyond our weight in terms of contribution. For the last 2 years, NZF personnel have been in Europe training members of the Ukrainian armed forces following the 2022 Russian invasion. For 40 years, we've had personnel deployed in the Sinai as part of an international peacekeeping operation following the 1978 Camp David agreement between Egypt and Israel. We currently have a frigate patrolling off the Korean peninsula. For over a year, NZF had 1,000 personnel deployed in Canterbury following the 2011 earthquake, and in recent years, NZF has domestically deployed personnel to assist with flood recovery of the east coast in Auckland and assisted offshore with the reconstruction of Tonga following the disastrous 2022 volcano. And the list goes on and on. At any one time, we'll have people in up to 54 different locations. I believe Kiwis can be proud of the New Zealand Defence Force and the role it plays both domestically and internationally, and I'm certainly proud to have been part of the organisation for almost 19 years. So what led to the establishment of the Force Financial Hub and how has it contributed to the financial well-being of Defence community members? There are a number of factors behind this. Firstly was a recognition that our bulk purchasing power provided the opportunity to partner with a range of organisations to provide benefits valued by Defence community members. And by doing this, we build financial resilience and long-term security. We've been able to obtain arrangements that would not be available to individuals, like our life insurance policy is an example that covers people wherever the government directs them to go, including combat and war zone operations. They have automatic life insurance cover provided by us through Aon and AIA. And we are also able to obtain these things at considerably cheaper price, such as free or subsidised financial advice services. Over the time, the Force Financial Hub has become self-funding, and that's reduced the direct NZF input. Secondly was to give recognition to the covenant concept that I referred to earlier. Military personnel and their families should have tangible support that recognises their contribution to society and the sacrifices they make. A third factor is the nature of our people. NZF is like a cross-section of New Zealand society. We have people from all walks of life and with varying levels of trade or formal education. Many of our people are graduates of the University of Life. Sensible, pragmatic, hard-working and technically very able, but without formal qualifications. Some people struggle with mathematical concepts like percentages, and that presents challenges when Tim and myself and people like Dennis and others are promoting house buying or retirement saving. Some may also struggle with legally worded documents like product disclosure statements or even application forms. And over the years we have found that face-to-face engagement has been the most effective way of reaching out to people through presentations or workshops or expos that are held in a variety of locations each year. We have also used a range of financial capability programs generally provided in work time through the Retirement Commission and their team to help build financial knowledge and awareness of money concepts. And post-COVID, we've also been using podcasts and webinars to reach out as well. And as an example, again, we've been working with Mercer over the last few months to develop a program for women, which we're running out at the moment. And what it does is it's a virtual program. People can do it in their own time. We recognise that everyone's time poor and so people can do the modules in their own time. But what it's aimed to do is to help get female members of the Defence Force more competent in investing as opposed to saving. And that's why, again, we're running these programs at the moment. A fourth factor was the importance of encouraging better use of the pay and benefits package available to military personnel in particular. While NZF will never be a top market payer, young recruits start on a very competitive package taking into account discounted food and accommodation. So as an example, a young recruit, a 17 or 18-year-old soldier, now starts on $68,100 a year. And on top of that, they're receiving subsidised food and accommodation. And Dennis will recall from our various sessions with young Navy personnel in Auckland, they actually have a considerable take-home pay each fortnight. And so what we're trying to do is to educate and steer them in the right direction around what they do with that money. At the end of the day, people can make their own choices. But what we do is encourage people to think about the long term, to think about the future. Some of the things that Jack, Tame and the panels were talking about this morning around what the future is going to hold for particularly younger people like Tim as an example. And so what we're trying to do is to get young soldiers, sailors and Air Force personnel to think long term and to think about what the future holds. And again, the podcasts and webinar side of things post-COVID has been particularly important as well. So, as I said, while the NZF will never be a top payer, our young recruits do start on a competitive package, and that includes discounted food and accommodation. And so what we do is we use the recruit sessions with the Retirement Commission to encourage saving and investing. We run promotional campaigns called the Get 100 campaign that shows how a young soldier, a sailor or Air Force can actually save 100K within the first 5 years of service, and that gives them the money to put towards a first home deposit. And a number of them have actually done so over the last few years, and this is 22 or 23-year-olds are getting themselves into the housing market, which is really important. And then a final factor is a practical one. Many defence personnel are in the field or on board ship and they don't have regular access to computers. So what are the benefits provided through the Force Financial Hub? So that's the goal we've set for ourselves. So what are the benefits that we're providing? There are a range shown in that graphic form earlier. First of all, our saving schemes, which we use to promote investing for future, including house buying. NZF is unique in having its own KiwiSaver scheme, the New Zealand Defence Force KiwiSaver scheme. As of last Friday, 5,623 members and $287 million invested. There is also another scheme called the NZF FlexiSaver scheme. So KiwiSaver, all about encouraging people to save for their first house and then for retirement. FlexiSaver is around using their money to save for other goals. And again, as of last Friday, we've got 1,639 members, $39.145 million invested, an average of about $23,000 to $24,000 per scheme. And then we also have a legacy superannuation scheme as well. So in total, our schemes have 9,600 members and in excess of $719 million invested. And having our own scheme gives the NZF the opportunity to leverage investment and fees and to provide additional benefits also available to family members. A key subsidised benefit is the range of financial advice services provided by Become Wealth, our financial advice and mortgage broker service. The rationale for that service is that many people require expert help with their financial decision making, including with financial retirement planning. And some services provided by Become Wealth are free and some are substantially discounted. There's also a free mortgage broker service as well. There are also a number of benefits to help defence community members manage risks. There is the MIBP Member Insurance Benefits Program, the most comprehensive workplace insurance program in the country. And you'll see each of the tables, we've left some brochures there about the MIBP. This insurance program provides 24/7 cover for everything the government requires our people to do and wherever they may be deployed or posted, including to war or combat zones. Then we have a domestic insurance program that enables people to buy cover for house, content, barracks and vehicle insurance, again at a discounted price. To protect families, there's a free will service and a discounted power of attorney service. To put into context and reflecting the importance of managing risks, over the last 12 months, sadly, NZF has had 16 deaths, all of them non-work related. On average, we have about 1 to 2 deaths per month, which is a very sad situation for us. As I mentioned earlier, to help build financial awareness, we partner with the New Zealand Retirement Commission in providing a range of financial capability programs across camps and bases. And this includes the introductory programs provided to all regular force recruits each year, almost 1,000 people, generally young personnel. There are also programs that focus on the requirements of women, reflecting that the average woman faces a gap in retirement savings, again as discussed this morning and I think yesterday in the panel as well. A contributing factor being that many women are good savers but less competent in investing. We're also partnering with the Retirement Commission in developing a program that focuses on the requirements of Maori and Pacifica. There is a link to the budgeting and money mentoring services to help defence households more effectively manage their finances. And this service is very important at a time of rising cost pressures that many New Zealand households are facing. And then a welcome addition to the Force Financial Hub offering this year is an agreement with the Police Credit Union to provide a range of services to Defence community members. The PCU has been providing services to police families for 50 years and earlier this year extended its offering to include Defence community members. Of particular interest is the shared equity product aimed at helping young personnel in particular to enter the housing market. There are also a range of investment opportunities at competitive rates and other loan opportunities as well. So how do we know the level of success and what impact we're having? So over the last 9 years, we've developed a number of indicators to assess the level of impact and in particular to measure how we contribute to financial well-being and long-term financial security and resilience. And we use a range of measures, things like the number of personnel now actively contributing to KiwiSaver or to a grandparent superannuation scheme. And across the NZF, we now have 95.3% of our people contributing. And for regular force members, in other words, our full-time Army, Navy and Air Force personnel, that figure is up to 98.6%. And remember, we don't actually have compulsory superannuation or KiwiSaver. This measure is critical as KiwiSaver is a non-brainer for any adult. We also look at contribution rates and in particular how many people are contributing above the statutory 3% member rate. And it's really pleasing to see that for those aged less than 30, more than 50% are now contributing 6, 8 or 10%, which is a great way of building a first home deposit. And again, part of the discussion I think today and yesterday has been the recognition that New Zealanders are not saving enough for their retirement. And so we're certainly very aware of that as an organisation and encouraging people to save more. We look at the number of members of the NZF savings schemes and the funds under management. As I mentioned earlier, 9,600 members, roughly $719 million in total. We look at the number of house purchases using funds from the NZF savings schemes, 178 over the last 12 months. And this is really important as it's generally recognised that home ownership long-term helps build financial security. And basically, if we don't get our young soldiers, sailors and Air Force into the housing market, we're not going to have an armed forces because housing is so critical to so many young people. We look at the gender fund gap in the New Zealand savings schemes and how it's trending. And certainly our stats over the last years, we've been looking at, particularly with our KiwiSaver scheme, and I'm pleased to report that our gender imbalance is now down to roughly 5%, as opposed to the industry norm of 36%. Obviously, any gender imbalance is wrong, and we aim to do more to eliminate that as quickly as we possibly can. We look at the number of financial hardship claims across the NZF savings schemes, and in recent years claims have been considerably lower than the industry norm, suggesting that most defence households are managing despite the recent cost pressures. We also look at other measures, including the number of Tier 2 and 3 purchases for the MIBP. So the MIBP has a number of layers to it. The Chief of Defence Force provides for our personnel. Everyone gets provided with $300,000 life insurance, income protection, and a policy called physical loss. And then under Tier 2, people could buy additional insurance up to $1 million, which they pay for themselves, but at a discounted price. And for partners and spouses, they can also buy $1 million cover under what's called MIBP Tier 3. And again, the person pays, but they get a substantial discount on the price that they pay for that as well. We look at the number of attendees at the financial capability programs over the year, including the recruit course introductory money sessions. So every year Natalie provides us with a very comprehensive report, thank you Natalie, that outlines the number of people who have attended our various programs and the feedback that's been received as well. And that's really important because we use that again to build on our successes and look at where we need to make changes to our content. We look at the number of financial plans that are provided by Become Wealth, the number of podcasts or webinars produced, the number of expos or presentations provided across a range of locations, and the number of Veterans Expos also provided. And as an example, Tim and myself are going to Whakatane the week after next to be part of a Veterans Expo that we're providing there. And what we do is we reach out to remote communities. We send out a number of minivans and bring people into town to Whakatane. So again, they have the chance to meet with ourselves and other providers to help ensure that they're getting all the benefits that veterans are entitled to, and they need to be aware that are available for them. We look at the number of Youth Development Unit presentations that we provide. So the YDU courses are the courses that we provide on behalf of government. It's funded by government, and we've had Tom and Dennis involved in us helping run those, develop the content and run those programs. And we provide a financial capability session for up to about 1,000 YDU recruits each year. We look at the number of wills provided, and on a slightly grim note, the number of annual deaths that we occur or see without a will. We look at the number of PCU investment accounts opened and the number of house purchases facilitated through the shared equity facility. And lastly, every 2 years we conduct financial wellbeing surveys which provide an opportunity for participants to rate their level of perceived financial security. In particular, we look for long-term trends, identifying where indicators are improving or alternatively regressing. Has the implementation always gone smoothly? No, it hasn't. The last 10 years have been challenging with the loss of Defence House in the November 2016 earthquake, the onset of COVID in 2021 and 20 and 21, and the deployment of hundreds of personnel to assist with the hotel quarantine duties. And then there was the disruption arising from the 2023 floods in Auckland and the East Coast. For a period, Defence also experienced double-digit attrition, with the departure of many personnel in search of proverbial greener pastures. All these factors caused disruption to our programs at different stages, requiring, as an example, a pause to classroom-based financial capability programs and some planned expos and presentations. On a positive note, those factors also encouraged us to explore more virtual delivery and use of social media to help promote benefits to younger personnel in particular. Have we finished our journey? Definitely not. There's still a lot more to be done. We aim to achieve 100% of personnel contributing to KiwiSaver, preferably to the NZF KiwiSaver scheme, and we want to have more people contributing 6, 8 or 10%, and NZF contributing more as an employer, recognising that increasingly retirees report that they need more of their own savings and investments to have a comfortable retirement. And on the way to retirement, there's more to be done to help young people in particular to enter the housing market. Home ownership helps build long-term financial security. We need to do more to support those locked out who opt out of the housing market to be in the same position financially as a homeowner when they ultimately retire. We want more engagement with the discounted financial and retirement planning service, particularly on the part of the 2,500 Defence personnel who are aged over 50, including 300 plus over aged 65. Similarly, we plan more work with Mercer and Become Wealth to raise awareness of decumulation options and tools so that when people do retire, they have a robust plan to stretch their savings and investments over the 25 years that on average they may expect to live in retirement. We need to do more to encourage women members to invest rather than to save, and to provide more tangible support for those who, through surveys, report themselves as less financially prepared than males for retirement. There is still a retirement fund gender gap, and even though the gap for our scheme appears to be lower than the industry norm and is trending downwards, any gender gap is wrong, and we want to eliminate that as quickly as we possibly can. We need to use our Marion Pacifica networks more effectively to deliver programs that are tailored for their requirement, using media that is better suited to a younger audience and involving families, reflecting that decision-making models are different to those of other backgrounds in New Zealand society. We need to recognise that people are increasingly time poor, and moreover that traditional classroom-based methods of delivering education programs are not suited to every audience. Podcasts and webinars or social media tools may be a more effective way of delivering content. And we have more to do to encourage all defence personnel and their partners to have an up-to-date will, so that families are protected in the event of the death of a loved one. We need to make sure that all veterans and their families are aware of the benefits available to them, and we want to work with the various defence non-public funds to deliver more tangible benefits for the defence community. And so the list goes on and on. I guess that's a long-winded way of saying that we won't be resting anytime soon. An important question that any employer would ask: in what ways has the Force Financial Hub benefited NZF, and has the effort been worth it? Definitely. The Force Financial Hub has benefited NZF. Because the FFH benefits continue to apply after a member ceases service, it's actually difficult to quantify the actual impact on retention in particular. However, successful surveys over the years have shown that the various benefits are valued by members and their families. And I believe our efforts have enhanced the NZF brand as a caring employer and increased the goodwill factor during challenging times. And to end on a positive note, we are very proud of our collective efforts, working collaboratively with a range of partners to build the Force Financial Hub. While I don't think we'll ever achieve a situation where everything is perfect, we're well on the way to having a financially resilient defence community. Thank you very much for your attention today.
There was a lot to take in there, and I'm so admiring of what you've done, particularly with FlexiSaver, which I'll talk to in due course by way of an outro. But Prue, to you firstly, you've been such a driving force in the FSC's Empowering Women initiative, aimed at enhancing women's financial confidence, well-being and empowerment. From your perspective, how do the defence initiatives go towards addressing some of the gender-specific issues Empower Women are focused on?
I think it's I was really inspired. Thanks, Mark, for your talk just now. I think it's really around the retirement gap and the contribution gap that we're really focused on, like those numbers of women, the big disparities of women retiring with so much less, and in making the Force Financial Hub and just really normalising it through the employers. A fantastic way of doing it. It's the relationship with part-time work and flexible work and the sort of unpaid carer economy that is sort of so not addressed in the KiwiSaver regime. Is as you say, Mike, the FlexiSaver is just such an innovative way of having people investing in a really sort of subtle way. And I guess the other piece that we're really focused on is the motherhood penalty around, which goes to exactly this point around taking the time out. It doesn't really, at the moment anyway, the structures don't address those issues. So I think that's really good. And the other piece is the financial literacy, because I think from our talk this morning, we're quite focused on the jargon and the sort of shame that goes with not necessarily knowing what these terms mean. So this way of embedding the Force Hub and having the podcasts is just such an empowering way of giving that to people. And I guess that goes to our other piece of Empower Women, and what we're trying to do is around having women in senior roles in businesses, it's good for the business, it's good for the bottom line, but having people knowing that their employer is supporting them through these different life stages is just, it's really exciting. So I feel like your scheme and initiatives really do try and address some of those quite sort of structural issues.
Yeah. Prue, a follow-up question, if I may, just before I turn to Michelle. What do you see as the role of employers more generally in not just remediating those gender-specific issues, but also in sort of furthering the financial well-being of New Zealanders collectively?
I mean, I think they've got quite a key role. I think there's, we talk about 3 layers to make the structural change, the government policies around paid parental leave, but it also obviously goes to employers and individuals playing a really key role. And I mean, we've just completed some research for infants, COGO research in Shift on exactly this, about the women in senior roles in financial services and Māori and financial services at all. And so much of the research came back was around actually employers making it easier and normalising some of the part-time, flexi-time kind of things, but also making savings and investing easy and not intimidating. So I think it kind of goes to retention and attracting employees too, so it is kind of good for everyone, I think. I mean, the banks do it really well, and I think sometimes showcasing places that do it well and make it a place where you actually can see where your pathway and doesn't feel like it's shut out and being able to return is really important. And I think designing these workforces and benefits around inclusivity and belonging is really important. I mean, in some ways, a very tiny little story about Shift, but, we focus on the what and how our lawyers want to work, and everything flows from there. And I think that's in the same way that the Defence Force is doing this. Is just, it means that people will stay. So I do think the focus on, we always talk about the ESG and DEI, but, I think focusing on the S and the ESG is crucial here, because it is around the policies, and it's around showing, the fact that you're reporting on the gender pay gap, on the parental leave register that we've got now as well, like just shining a light on what employers are doing goes to us measuring it and trying to reduce it as well.
Yeah, it's an amazing potpourri. I mean, they're doing so much, and even just looking at that selectively, there's so many things that employers could do from within that long list that would just be so impactful. Michelle, it's fabulous hearing what Defence is doing by way of facilitated access to independent, non-aligned financial advice. I note, however, that recent Retirement Commission research showed that although only half of Kiwis say they can manage with an unexpected expense, even when worried about debt levels, fewer than 20% will proactively seek out financial advice or indeed advice. Based on your experience, can you elaborate a little bit on the barriers to New Zealanders seeking or taking advice and how those might be better mitigated through the workforce?
Thanks for that, Mike. Is that on? Unfortunately, despite the tangible benefits of personal financial strategies being put in place and control, and the intangible benefits of peace of mind and confidence that you get from taking professional financial advice, we still have a very, very low uptake, less than 20%. And I guess from my perspective, having been an advisor, some of those common barriers that you do see in the industry are the perceived cost, perceived complexity. We were talking about jargon earlier, and I know some of the other sessions have been, demystifying things and making it simple. Another area is the lack of trust. Financial services, we've had Haynes Commission and other things, and that's affected financial advisors and the industry as a whole, and that needs to be built up over time. One thing which is sadly, I feel happens more often than not, is that people feel that their finances are too limited to warrant actually seeking financial advice from a professional, which really needs to be changed, because we've heard about reports and numbers and statistics, and there's a great number of individuals that need to benefit from some of that, just with respect to KiwiSaver. And putting a budget or a plan in place. So I think that there's a lot to be done there. And believe it or not, a general lack of awareness of what financial advisors actually do. So part of the piece, I think, from a financial advice perspective, and they are the front line really of the financial, advisors are the front line of the industry, by partnering, like you've seen with NZ Defence Force, by partnering with employers really hold the key to try and help you with breaking down that barrier, removing it, building the trust, because it's almost like a transference of trust when you have good advisors and good partners around your employee. So, from my perspective, the benefits of having that financial advice in place are immeasurable. And it doesn't need to cost the earth. If you're lucky enough, it could be subsidised, or there could be a tiering process. There are many ways for employees to access it at different times of their lives. And from an employer's perspective, the employee feels valued and also feels supported along their life journey, which then, to Prue's point, goes back to what's important to them and their loyalty and retention. So. Hopefully, we've got a long way to go, but I think that building a structure like we see around an employee, where you have easily accessible, the financial hub, easy to access information, education, some tools that you could use to give you an idea, and also introductions to parties who can actually help you and who are willing and there to help you along your way is important.
Yeah, and it's not weightless, but it comes at no additional rem cost.
Yeah.
Research shows there are significant changes happening within New Zealand's population base. We know what those are. How do you see those informing what New Zealand employers should look to do to support employees in this support space?
Big question.
They're both big questions, sorry.
Yes, I'll simplify it. There are many good insights that you can gain from demographic research. I mentioned Professor Paul Spoonley. He's done a lot of New Zealand research. And New Zealand is changing at a rapid pace. We've got ageing demographics. By 2030, there'll be 1 in 4 Kiwis who are over the age of 65. We have declining fertility rates. So the implications for the industry as a whole, including the need for retirement planning, the need for healthcare funding, and all of those things that go, that encompass the employee on their journey, are shifting things. We also have ethnic diversity. So we have, significant growth in Asian, Maori, Pacifica communities. And this brings with it change in population, but also a more diverse workforce, different needs in order to cater for those communities which are unique. And we also have things like changing, household changes. So a rise in single-person households, multi-generational living arrangements, which brings along, financial complexities and other dynamics that we really need to cater for. So I guess for an employer having a look forward, the employee or the face of the consumer and the employee is changing. And we also need to be flexible enough to move and change with that. And with that goes the financial services industry, which really needs to look at, financial strategies, products and services that can actually cater for a new employee of the future.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add in that regard, Mark?
I think the key thing is to build engagement, to take people on the journey.
Yeah.
We get a lot of, and Dennis would recall this from our Navy recruit courses, what we find when people join Defence, many of the young ones are in KiwiSaver already, which is really great. And what we're trying to do is to make things as simple as possible for people to take an interest in what they're doing with their money. And you find it as they build up their fund balances, they are more interested in it. But you've got to make things simple for people as well. And let's be frank, I think all of us know that product disclosure documents, as an example, are not the most exciting documents and are probably a turn-off for many people. And so I think we need to do more to make sure that the things that we're doing for people reflect where people are with their education levels and everything else. And there is a fine line between talking down to people and educating and informing. And so you have to be very careful around how you go about doing that as well.
Yep. We're doing well for time. So before I thank Mark and just burrow into one of his initiatives in particular, which gets me really excited, as a policy wonk. Any questions from the floor? Because none of them are coming through electronically, understandably. Chris, hi.
So Mark, you mentioned that compared to the sort of Gender New Zealand plunged gender gap being 36%, Defence Forces were around 5%. What specific initiatives has Defence Force done to drive that reduction in the gap? And is that something that small employers would be able to do?
Yeah, very much so. In fact, in certain things it'll be easier for smaller employers. So we actually have a very effective diversity and equity team that we work alongside, Tim and myself. We also have our remuneration team, so we work with them as well. And I think as has been identified, there's a whole range of factors behind gender fund imbalances. And some of them, to be frank, are within our control and some of them are outside our control. So what we do is we concentrate on the things that we're able to influence, and that's very much around education, informing. As Natalie down the back there will know, we've run some really great programs encouraging people to come along and make them as simple as possible for them to, in particular, to really engage and understand the difference between saving and investing, and that's where we've concentrated a lot of our efforts. We work again with our equity and diversity team around things like gender pay gaps, more flexible working practices, particularly for young mothers and working mothers and things like that. So that's a very important part of our approach as well. But as I said, there's things that Tim and I can work on and influence, and then we work with others to try and influence those things as well. But certainly I think for smaller employers it's probably easier than it is for large employers like Defence.
Any other questions for our panellists? Please.
Question here about your uptake with your KiwiSaver,
Yeah.
which is quite incredible. But if you were to single out sort of your top two things that you think you've done to really drive that within the Defence Force, what would they be? What do you think would kind of
Having our own KiwiSaver scheme was a really important part of that, and the reason for that being is there's 37, 38 KiwiSaver schemes in the marketplace. We've got no control over that. What we can influence is the scheme that we have, and working with Mercer and Philippa and her team, and around influencing investments, influencing fees. The closer we get to the $1 billion mark, the greater the leverage we have to negotiate reduction in fees, and that's a really important part of our approach. And the third thing is using that again to work collaboratively with Become Wealth, the Retirement Commission, to educate and inform. Because as I mentioned earlier, things like product disclosure statements and things like that are a turn off for most people. And so we use other mechanisms. We recognise the legal requirement, but we actually use other tools to educate and inform and to try and make things as simple as possible for people so that they understand what they're doing and they want to engage and they want to take an interest in what their money's doing.
Any other questions? I'm keen to give us 5 minutes to get from A to B. Thank you, Prue, Michelle and Mark, but thank you, Mark, in particular, for sharing with us both your expertise and your experience in such a thoughtful way. That was so enlightening. These Defence Force initiatives deserve to be celebrated because they're meeting an objective need on so many fronts. And the three of us really just wanted to call out in the savings space, just to take one example, one of the key elements of what it is that Mark and the Defence Force are doing. KiwiSaver, right from its inception, was intended to protect and complement what we called, because I was in the room, the base of the pathway, so to speak, being other occupational super schemes and plans. That didn't happen. Despite what is now the near absence of incentives, KiwiSaver has continued to sweep all before it, displacing other more tailored group savings vehicles, while contributions markedly decline despite wage inflation. Members prioritise short-term financial obligations over long-term savings. Hardship withdrawals are hitting an all-time high, 70 million last year. And the gender gap is widening. It's 36% thanks to a contribution gap principally. And retirement balances projections suggest resulting manifest inadequacy. In that context, we find the Defence FlexiSaver sidecar savings facility which, as you've explained, Mark, offers a big group discount and even a payroll-sourced member contribution facility, which may not have come up in the presentation. It's just an ingenious way to help mitigate those issues, and frankly, an instructive and enlightening precedent. I'd like employers, of course, optimally to volunteer an additional tax-effective employer contribution to a more flexibly accessed employer retirement plan alongside KiwiSaver. But for those who don't wish to do that, and we need to acknowledge that's most New Zealand employers, it's simply a more intuitive KiwiSaver complement than another retirement product, offering habitual and emergency savings at no extra rem cost, without the legislated lock-in restrictions imposed on a retirement scheme, and as a pivot point to help initiate an advice conversation. Now, my hope is that its success will encourage other large employers, scheme and platform providers and distributors, including perhaps even white labelling proponents, to see its precedent value as an attractive, cost-efficient, flexible, group discounted, vanilla managed investment scheme offering. Because what Mark didn't mention, and just to be clear, is that just like a master trust-based workplace savings retirement plan, Defence FlexiSaver is just an employer-specific section within a wider retail managed investment scheme. So attendees, there we have it. That's quite the potpourri of incentives and initiatives, and a lot of food for thought. Thank you all for your attendance and engagement. We'll stick around for any more questions, but we really enjoyed today. This is a topic that its time has come. The time has come to have these really engaged conversations about what employers are going to do that's ancillary to and supports KiwiSaver in a way that doesn't add to their bottom line rem costs, but just generates a significant goodwill and business dividend. And thank you all for your contributions to helping us think through that. And parade dismissed, as they say. Mā te wā. Thank you.